Hello folks and welcome to a new lesson. So today I've got a really cool fill that incorporates a lot of flams around the kit, and it sounds great in a kind of fat rock context, or I think it might sound really cool in a Latin context too. So it sounds quite complicated, but as you break it down it becomes a lot easier. So this fill is actually just a 4/4 fill, and it's just one bar of music and it's just 16th notes the whole time. So what makes it sound so hard is just the weird phrasings. There's phrases of free in there and there's some weird accents, but as we break it down, you'll see it's not actually too hard. So to make this easier to learn, what we're going to do is just split that fill in the middle and learn the first 2 beats, and then we'll learn the second 2 beats as well, and we'll put them back together, and then we'll have our fill. So let's just start with the first 2 beats of the fill. So this first half of the fill is definitely the more complicated bit, but if we break it down, it's not actually too difficult. So what we're doing is we're playing 2 left-handed lead flam accents. So the sticking for that is just a left hand flam and then a right left. Now this is usually played as triplets, but in this context we're using them as just 16th notes. So we play that twice. So we're doing a left hand flam between the floor tom and the snare drum. So we're doing that flam, left hand lead, so the snare drum is the kind of accent. But in this kind of context of the fill, they're both kind of loud. So we do that flam and then we just do right left on the snare drum. And we just do that twice, so we do flam right left, just like that. And so what I'll do is I'll just show you a quick video of that at a slow and high tempo. So once you're happy with those 2 flam accents, we've just got 2 more semiquavers that we need to fill in before we have a full 2 beats of semiquavers. So to fill that in, we've just got a right hand on the snare drum and then a left hand flam between the snare drum and the rack tom. Now remember, these flams are quite powerful, so don't be afraid to kind of whack them, and don't be too scared to, you know, have loads of dynamics between them. It's more just to make the fill sound a lot more fat, because it's going to be used in a rock context or a Latin context. So what I'll do now is just play that full first 2 beats of the fill, and then you can hear it in a slow and fast context. So those 2 beats by themselves is actually a great fill. I like to use that if you're just doing kind of a half bar fill. It sounds great. If you're leading up into a different section and you want something that's really building up to something, that's a great fill to use. So bear that in mind, you don't need to have the full bar. You can just use that little phrase there and it sounds great by itself. One thing I would note about this fill is you don't have to be super tight with the flams either. You can make those flams quite loose and sloppy if you're going for a different vibe. You can experiment with how that sounds. You can do quite tight flams, or you can do quite loose and sloppy flams. I personally like to do kind of sloppy flams because it sounds really cool, and again widens the sound of the fill. But again, that's up to you to experiment with. So once you're happy with the hands, we're actually doing a bit of footwork here as well. It's not super complicated. All we're doing is we're just adding a bass drum on the accents of those first 2 flam accents. So all we do is just between the snare drum and floor tom, we just add a kick drum as well. So it just kind of, again, fattens it up. So what I'll do is I'll just play that first section of the fill and I'll just add the kick drum in so you can hear it. And that is the full first section of the fill. So moving on to the second 2 beats of the fill. Now luckily this is a lot more simple than the first half, so this won't take as long to explain. So what we're doing first is we're just doing right left on the snare, just as semiquavers. And then what we're doing is we're doing a flamadiddle left hand lead. So it's basically a paradiddle, but the first note is just we're doing a left hand flam. So we're going left hand flam, right, left, left. Left, right, left, left, essentially, but we're adding that flam between the floor tom and the snare drum again. So I'll just quickly play that second half of the fill for you. And again, what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be adding a kick drum with that flam. So we're going da 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 bra da da da, and it'll just add that just extra beef that you want from this fill, because it's already a really beefy fill. So why not add some kick drums in there as well? And again, this is a great fill you can just use by itself, but if you're looking for something even more, punch in the face vibes, we can put these 2 things together and you'll get the full fill. So here we go, here's the full fill, just at a slow tempo. And now a higher tempo as well. So have some fun with that and try it in context to a beat, because you can master a fill, but as soon as you start playing a groove, it might fall apart. So remember to practice these things in context to a groove and a beat, because really, I've done this all the time. I used to do this all the time. Just like, master a fill that's like, oh, I've got this chopped down, but as soon as I'm playing it with a band, I'm like, oh my god, I can't play this in context to a groove, which is really bad. So remember to make things relevant to music. So practice this to a metronome with a groove and make it really tight. Now I would say these orchestrations that I've got written down, they're just examples of what you could do. Now you could actually use these stickings and implement stacks, cymbals, hi-hats, add different toms, do whatever you want. It's really up to experimentation. So I advise learn the pattern as a sticking and then start to implement different parts around your kit, and then you've got so many more options. Don't just stick to what I've told you to do, just experiment yourself. Okay, so that about wraps it up. So I hope you enjoyed this fill. It's great because I love actually using all these rudiments that I've sat and learnt, because it's very kind of disappointing when you're learning all these rudiments and you never actually use them. So I'm trying to teach you guys how to implement these rudiments and actually make it sound interesting and musical, and make it sound like you can use it in context to music, which is really important when you're learning stuff. So again, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.